Hello, Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining to this session. We'll just wait maybe one more minute before we start to get everyone to give everyone the chance of getting connected. Okay, let's get started. Thank you very much. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in Europe or the world. Our panelists themselves are a bit spread out around the globe. We're very happy to have you. Thank you for joining today's for the discussion on the decarbonization of the digital advertising supply chain. Sustainability has indeed become a critical priority for industry. It was ranked as the most critical challenge for the digital advertising industry in our 2025 State of Readiness report. So sustainability is a growing priority with companies across the ecosystem actively exploring ways to reduce their environmental impact or the environmental impact of their clients. And at IB Europe, we are committed to driving awareness, collaboration, and innovation in this area. And to help highlight and accelerate these efforts, we have recently released case studies as part of our Pan-European Case Studies program, a program dedicated to showcasing a real-world example of sustainability in action. And bringing together case studies from various companies around Europe, the initiative focuses on the decarbonization of the supply chain and other impactful sustainability initiative. And we have tried in this case studies to highlight the quantifiable results, collaboration efforts, and potential adherence to industry standards. So these case studies are now available on the IB Europe website via the Sustainability Hub. And by sharing these case studies, what we're trying to do here is to educate, inspire, but also drive change. So in today's session, we will feature insights from industry leaders who are actively working to reduce emissions within the digital advertising supply chain. And our speakers, they will share practical case studies that explore the challenges and the opportunities of deploying such solutions. So before we dive in, I'd like to introduce our members and experts. Greta Barsanti, Senior Marketing Manager, Southern Europe at PubMatic. Marion Cardona, Chief Operating Officer at Impact Plus. Eric Shi, Chief Operating Officer at Cedara. And Elisa Boivin, Managing Director at Footsprint. And I am Colombe Michaud. I'm the New Products and Services Director at IB Europe, and I'll be your host for today's session. So what we would like to encourage you to do is, if you have any questions, use the Q&A box so that we can, devote some time at the end after the presentations to ask our panelists the question that you have. And we sincerely hope that you will take away some insights from today's session that, might be useful in your own business activities. So now let's get started with our first speaker, Greta Barsanti from PubMatic. And just to note that the session is being recorded and will be shared across our channels afterwards.
So thank you, Colombe, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. So as mentioned, I'm Greta Barsanti, Senior Marketing Manager, Southern Europe at PubMatic. and I'm truly glad to be here today to discuss this topic, which is our industry's biggest challenge and opportunity, I'd say today, sustainability in ad tech and digital advertising, and I'm truly passionate about it. So first, I'd like to give you a bit of a background who PubMatic is. We are an independent global ad tech company, and since our founding nearly 20 years ago in 2006, we've been committed to building a transparent, efficient, and high-performing digital supply chain. But we see that as our industry evolves, performance alone isn't enough anymore. And for us, sustainability is truly not a side project. It's a core value embedded in everything that we do. And it translates into actions from promoting responsible media practices to reducing carbon emissions across the supply chains, which we'll see in a while how we do. So when I was preparing my intervention here, I was questioning myself, can performance and sustainability coexist in ad tech? And I'd say that based on the case study that I'm going to present, but also on what I've heard from my fellow webinarists, spoiler, the answer seems to be yes. So no matter where each company stands as of today in their sustainability journey, I'd say that the urgency to take action, both individually and collectively as an industry, is real. I don't want to dive deep in the reasons why, but however, for those like us who operate in a data-intensive industry, like programmatic advertising, infrastructure appears to be the place where we can make the greatest environmental impact in both ways, in a good or bad ways. So reports say that globally, data transfer is expected to grow 40% per year, and by 2030, we're looking at 4 per increase. And it's mainly due to 3 key drivers: the growth of video consumption, which now accounts for already 66% of mobile traffic, and it's set to hit 77% in 5 years. Mobile first internet growth, as many regions skip fixed broadband infrastructure and go straight into mobile, which is a high consuming medium, say, support. And so more video consumption with larger files paired with high frequency of use and mobile, it means more data transfer, and so more environmental impact. At the same time, on the other hand, the consumer is demanding for seamless, high quality content, which also means more data, more energy, and more emissions. So that's the picture. So as I mentioned, sustainability is also a responsibility. It can't be just a buzzword or something that we like, we enjoy, but how can we do more and in practice? So just to give you a few examples with regard to our experience, since 2022, 100% of our global data centers at PubMatic runs on renewable energy. This has been quite long and articulate journey, also expensive because you have to also assess the different opportunities, and cheaper doesn't mean more efficient. So it really takes some efforts. Empowering responsible media buying is also an asset for us when we support agency and buyers to align their media investments with sustainability goals, and we help them make smarter, lower carbon choices. For instance, we offer what we call auction packages, which is carbon efficient premium inventory packaged for their campaigns. We leverage partnerships with companies or nonprofit orgs like NewsGuard or Internews, and we support quality of the supply chain through supply path optimizations, which we have been pioneering and staying to what the above mentioned report on the state of readiness from the IAB Europe. 61% of industry players are now prioritizing SPO. We also partner with Net Zero and other entities like IB Europe, locally and internationally with IB Europe. But going now to the point, as an answer to the question, can sustainability and performance coexist in a successful way? I mentioned, yes, it can be. So want to tell you about this case study that we prepared after managing a campaign for our long-term partner Group M Nexus in France, where we partner with Cindy's. And well, just a tiny hint to Cindy's, they have this technology that allows leveraging video campaigns while reducing efficient and successful video campaigns while reducing data transfer. So basically what Group M needed to do back in September 2023 was to run a campaign that would maximize reach, so hitting KPIs as viewability and video completion rate, maintain their own control over media buying, so gaining transparency while ensuring for their client, which was an e-commerce platform, efficiency and scalability while having quality in the inventory and brand safety, and last but not least, reduce carbon emissions. So how did we make it? We partnered, as mentioned, with Cindy's, with their adaptive streaming technology, and which helped us minimize emissions and enhance media performance. And we ran the campaign on our auction packages, which is the way we package premium inventory, given scalability, but also efficiency in terms of bidding capabilities. And the two combined gave us amazing results, which I'm going to show you. So just allow me a second to share my screen here. Okay, so here's what we've measured against. So we hit a minimization of 2.09 tons of CO2 in the time frame of like 10 weeks. So it was sort of time frame that we measured. We achieved plus 49% view-through rate over the performance goal that we were given, and plus 31% viewability increase over performance goal reduction, okay, 40% CO2 reduction from creative delivery, and 57% data waste avoided from creative delivery. So you see how we put this technology at work. And in practice, sorry, my PC is just, sorry, guys, allow me a second. Okay, there it is, sorry. And then after measuring the impact in terms of KPIs, we were also measuring how these lowering of CO2 emissions might also translate into our daily life. And it's interesting because, as you can see, it resulted in the likes of 255,610 fully charged smartphones, or we could compare it to 6 flights, London to Madrid, just because our European EMEA headquarters is in London, so we measured from there, and or 16,000 kilometers driven by car, which is amazing, seeing how we could really measure the environmental impact. So, morale. This collabo as a streamlined digital ad delivering as enhanced user experience, because we see from the KPIs that were outstanding, really good ones. And so we feel like we can say that sustainability and performance can go hand in hand. Of course, you have to embrace technology, you have to do all your testing and learnings and partner with companies that can really support you and help you succeed. And with regard to more details, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll leave it to Colombe so that she can show the QR code where you can download our case study and learn more. And I want to thank you for the opportunity of being here today and sharing our experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greta. And this is the QR code, so you can download, you can just scan it, and then you go to the page, and then you can also download the case studies on the page itself for future reference. So thank you very much, Greta. Next, we will go with Marion Cardona, Chief Operating Officer at Impact Plus, for her presentation and case study.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. Otherwise, let me know. Thank you, Greta. I really love the introduction explaining what can be all the tangible impacts that we don't see that have a real impact on the environment. Basically, I will quickly, we have 10 minutes, so that will be quick. I will focus and basically introduce what we do. And I will present it in a continuation basically on what I really love, Greta, what you talk about performances and sustainability. So maybe I will use that as an introduction also, and then presenting our case. And if you have any question, would be happy to answer it. So we'll share my screen and let me know then once it's ready if you can see it properly. So quick introduction of what we do, relying on also what Greta was talking about. So at Impact Plus, we are specific tech or dedicated tech, we can say, for sustainable marketing. So we consider ourselves as a very vertical solution, meaning that our main mission is how we can empower. And also, Colombe, you were talking in the introduction on raising awareness and so on. So really how we can empower marketers from ad tech, from brand, from agency, making sure that we can combine two things. That is how I can achieve and exceed sustainability goal alongside performances. Because let's be honest, right? We are working in an industry that is all about performances, and that won't stop. Okay, so we need to take into consideration that the industry will grow as the greenhouse gas emission of this industry. And that's why we have here a problem is that we need to have granular solution. And I will explain how we can support that to make sure that we can decouple the spend or the turnover that you can have from your greenhouse gas emission. Because target for ad tech or even from an advertiser point of view is that they will continue to grow in terms of investment, and from an ad tech perspective, the target is growth, right? So more growth, more investment equal more greenhouse gas emissions. So how we can make sure also that we have the right approach to have KPI, just like we have in media. So objective is to reduce the total volume of greenhouse gas emission, but to monitor it like we can do in media. So basically, in a campaign, to identify what can be the best strategy in terms of format, placement, and to automate it, we'll look at unit indicators. That can be cost indicators, CPM, CPC, I don't know, conversion one, and so on, but we want to rank it. So I think that it's important that seeing sustainability also as a KPI. So I will explain some indicators, but this can reconnect to what Greta was saying, reduce the total amount of greenhouse gas emission, but really integrating sustainability into what we do as an industry, meaning like performances point of view. And we will see that the support, and I will explain that through the case study that we will present today, that the support we provide at Impact Plus is really how we can combine both, how we can combine both expertise, making sure that we reach our target, that is maintaining performances, because we can go against our industry rules, right? But reducing effectively greenhouse gas emission. And also something that it's important to have in mind is that it will be all about collaboration, right? How we can onboard, how we can share the knowledge, how we can make sure that, yes, it starts with raising awareness, but then it starts by knowing how to interpret this figure, making sure that we can incorporate it and having success. And this is what I will present today. Through a very simple path that you can keep it in mind, that this is how we support also our clients, is also having in mind that sustainability It's about like a journey, right? Sure, we will provide solution to automate and so on, but maybe if you didn't start, and that can be in the question, but how you can start, how you can kick off, and we can see that. But think it also as a journey. The first step will be measurement. So without measurement, in the way we see that, it's important because you cannot assess, you cannot realize how important it is. So if you want to kickstart and if you want to start your journey, I would say like building some proof case or proof point would be important to convince whether your leadership and so on, and showing that yes, it matters, and also identifying what can be done, having some proof point that this does not impact your performances, right? So first step, evaluation, how you can make sure that you have tools and partners that will help you to support your reporting on greenhouse gas emission, track your greenhouse gas emission at a granular level, because that will have an impact on the activation and reduction and monitoring on what you do, because what you want to identify again, it's greenhouse gas emission depending on how you buy. So you can say like €1, £1, $1 in the future will have less greenhouse gas emission. And so understanding the sources of emission will help you to discover some opportunities to act on these reduction actions. So for example, Greta was talking about working with Sinvis on reducing the data transfers and using streaming solution to reduce the quantity of data that is required on the hosting network and end user devices. So very interesting on this part, but this can be one levers. So once you have identified this, you can act actively on this opportunity and making sure that you maintain your performances. And also what is important with granular solution is making sure that you can quantify this reduction. And then it will be all about scaling. How you can automate everything, how you can integrate with your own tech. That can be through measurement, that can be also through reduction activation, using what we call at Impact Plus eco-bidding solution, meaning like bidding algorithm with environmental data to automate the reduction. And also what is important, it's not only about the tech that does a lot, but also how this awareness is shared, and so how you can also make sure that we drive together collaboration change within the industry. So the use case I will present today, it's the one with L'Oréal, because I think that's a great one. Why? Because you will see, and it will be available on IAB Europe, it showcases that sustainability is already happening at scale. And so I think it's a very inspiring one, because it proved that when leaders also take the initiative to make sure that sustainability is important and key, we can have a success here.
I'm just interrupting you.
Yes.
Not sure. It's not clear if we're seeing the slides.
You don't see the slide?
We see the slides, but we don't know if it's the right slide. You're sure it's still like on the initial slide.
Okay, because I was going full screen. Okay, merci Colombe. What I will do this, okay? Or let me check.
Maybe quickly go back on the, just so that
okay. But at least you have the speech. So maybe what I will do is sharing my whole screen, okay?
Yes, thank you.
But I'm not sure that I can do so. Okay. And if I do that, you don't see it full screen?
No, we only see the, maybe you can just, go down like this.
Okay, I will keep like this. Okay. So, let me check like this better. So here, okay, you have the speech, but I was showing that. So anytime if you have any question, but keep in mind that it's a path. We want to measure, we want to reduce, and we want to act effectively. So how we can scale it. I will go skip and directly, as it is already 25, to the use case, right? So explaining very briefly what we do, and I was talking about how we can build some proof case and having some knowledge. So what we do is that we start small, but at least we scale it up to more than 200 campaigns with the group. But the idea, and keep in mind for you if you want to start this journey, is how we can provide insights on greenhouse gas emission, and as I was saying, on how we can rank it, how we can have vision of what is performing or not, because this will help you to have to identify what can be opportunities, and then making sure that you can target these opportunities, matching your strategy so you can implement it. And then what we do is, once we have collected all this learning across multiple countries, we had more than 27 hubs that includes several countries. We were thinking on, yes, now how we can scale it, how we can automate it across the whole group, making sure we can build a greenhouse gas emission baseline. And so we switched it to a tool that we have at Impact Plus that is called Environmental Sustainability Platform, that help us to gather automatically the data at the level of your campaign, meaning down to the creative level, and making sure that we can assess it, but we can also deep dive into it, reconnect it with your KPI, meaning like, okay, across the scope that I've selected, what are the best format, placement, strategy that will allow me to maximize view, maximize, I don't know, conversion with less greenhouse gas emission. And here, this helps also to take decision, because at the end, decision needs to be made. So here, basically, and I will be short, what is important for you to have in mind when you start this project is how we can be scalable. I think that is the most important here, because you want to start small, sure, having some proof, but then when it's validated, how you can go directly. So how we support in this use case, L'Oréal Group, is having a tool that is available globally, having a tool that is compliant with, I would say, most of the global platform, and even having the capabilities to get access to direct buying and so on, making sure that everything is all at the same place, under the same methodology to enable data governance very easy. Provide real-time and granular assessment to help reduction strategy, because this will also can inform, as I was saying, eco-bidding algorithm and so on. And also making sure that the knowledge is shared, that teams are trained, teams are empowered, because this is a collaborative work, right? Sustainability is collaborative work. And so as key takeaways, I would say, like, keep in mind that it's already happening. So if you have any question, feel free to look at who is doing what, asking for not sponsors or mentors, but very buddies into that, so you can be inspired, and making sure that this suits also what you are doing. Standardization will be key, because here, so GMSF, Global Media Sustainability Framework, will soon be launched, but this will be very important for our industry, because we'll have uniformity in what we are sharing also. So I think that this can be measurement won't be a blocker anymore. And so I can really encourage you to start the journey. If you do not know how to start it, we released a guide that can help you. It's a really very practical guide, very step-by-step guide. You will have a ground zero step on how you can gather what can be within your company the right sponsored, what are the next step, timeline, and so on, for you to have, I would say, guidance into this topic. And if you have questions, would be very happy to answer them. Thank you so much. And sorry for, I don't know why it didn't work, but we managed.
Make sure to add the slides in the deck where if we circulate anything with the recording. Thank you very much for this. It was really insightful and great to hear all of these sort of journey milestones that people have to kind of go through. So here is the QR code for everyone to scan and download the case studies directly. And we'll just go to our next speaker, an expert with Eric, Chief Operating Officer at Cedara. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Colombe, and great to see some great presentations and case studies from Marion and Greta. I think it's great to see, obviously, companies taking action today, which I think will be a nice segue into what we're going to talk about is companies that are taking action today from a sustainability perspective and decarbonizing their supply chain. So let me jump right into a few slides to talk about the case study that we put together. But before I get into that, I'd love to just give you a quick overview of who Cedara is for those that are not familiar with us. We are, as described here, a carbon intelligence platform, but really a full suite carbon measurement and reduction solution that's built for the media industry. Really, when we approach sustainability, it's looking at both comprehensive and holistic measurement and reduction of emissions. Our platform is built to measure full scopes of emissions, so scope 1, 2, and 3 for companies throughout the ecosystem, with obviously a heavy emphasis on scope 3, because the vast majority of emissions for companies in our industry come from media delivery and operations. So we look at all omni-channel media delivery, not only in digital, which is where we started, but now today offline channels as well. And we really are very focused on adoption and rollout of industry standards. So big supporters of the Global Media Sustainability Framework, which you'll probably hear about many times, either today or later on. But ultimately, we work with actors throughout the media supply chain, as we call it. We work with brands, we work with agencies, any media suppliers, and these could be ad platforms, publishers, media owners, et cetera. But anyone who obviously has a goal of measuring their holistic emissions and finding ways to reduce and take action. So we want to talk a little bit about the case study that we worked on with a couple of our partners, actually. One is one of our longtime partners has been GumGum, and if you're not familiar with GumGum, they are a leading contextual first global ad platform. They operate in many different markets, of course, across Europe. Cedara as well. We're a global company today, so we do support companies across the globe. But GumGum had really started off their sustainability journey very early. In early 2023, they partnered with us because they really wanted to find a way to measure their full organizational emissions, as we call it. So all scopes 1, 2, and 3, of course, the vast majority, which we'll talk about in a bit, of their emissions sit in their supply chain, which is scope 3. So they've actually been doing this with us for a couple of years now, and they're fairly advanced, and they continue to advance their sustainability journey on the measurement side. But with all the data they've been able to get, now they get really start to think about how to take action and start reducing their emissions, setting targets potentially on reduction of their emissions. Ultimately, our measurement with GumGum is today now aligned with the GMSF, particularly when we talk about their media campaigns. But we've always focused on industry standard with them. We obviously comply with the greenhouse gas protocol for corporate measurement of their emissions. Prior to GMSF, and this is sort of the basis of the case study we'll talk about today, we relied on the methodology from SRI and Alliance Digital, which really served as the basis for the digital part of the framework of GMSF. So it's been sort of in our philosophy that we continue to work with the industry to really have a consistent way of measuring impact. And now, as I mentioned, what we're going to talk about today is how we're collaborating with GumGum and one of their partners to really implement carbon reduction throughout their organization. But before we get to the reduction part of things, we have a great saying in our industry is that you can't manage what you can't measure. So I think the theme from our 2 previous case studies that we saw today is that measurement is pretty key to really provide insights on what you're going to be able to do to reduce emissions. So speaking about measurement, when you look at companies, particularly in the programmatic side of our business, the vast majority of emissions for businesses in programmatic will come from scope 3 emissions. And those supply chain emissions come from the delivery media, right? So if we look at this pie chart here, it breaks out the average percent of where emissions come from for programmatic media. And this data is really based on GMSF using a lot of the industry averages if you populate that framework. So you start to see that the vast majority of emissions for programmatic media come from a category of emissions called ad selection. And you can see 50% of emissions come from ad selection networks in this case, and another 35% from ad selection servers. Well, what does that all mean? Well, if you look at ad selection networks, it's actually the data transmission, the energy required to transmit data across networks to support all the auction activity in programmatic media. Ad selection servers is the actual energy used at the server level to process all those bid requests and all the auction mechanics that are happening between SSPs and DSPs. So if you really want to tackle the emissions that are coming from programmatic, you need to really focus on these two big segments. Of course, there are other sources of emissions to tackle, which would be ad delivery. And ad delivery is really emissions coming from the ad servers or the CDNs to deliver the ad creative to the user's network. And of course, the final, I guess, last mile of emissions will come from the user device itself, right? To download or stream the ad creative to your device and ultimately serve that ad on your screen, which requires energy. So with that in mind, we sort of framed the problem working with GumGum, like, okay, so we know that a lot of the big chunk of the emissions will come from ad selection. So what can they do ultimately to try to reduce those emissions? Well, one of the big levers is to optimize the bid stream, optimize the bidding activity, ultimately reducing bidding activity. So you reduce energy usage and ultimately reduce the emissions impact. So GumGum actually engaged with a third party called Assertive Yield. Now, Assertive Yield is a provider of what's known as traffic shaping solutions. They work with ad platforms, they work with publishers, really designed to reduce or optimize bid stream activity. And they originally, obviously, their business wasn't focused on reducing emissions because optimizing the bid stream has other benefits ultimately for companies. It can help you lower your infrastructure costs, your data costs, and also reduces energy usage. But also can help improve your relationships with other actors in the supply chain. If you're an SSP like GumGum, you don't want to overload the DSPs with a lot of QPS, as it's known, queries per second, or a lot of traffic. So what Assertive Yield does is ultimately gives that tool to manage QPS, the number of bid requests that you're sending to DSPs. So you're only sending the best bid requests, right? The ones that are predicted to be monetized instead of sending wasted traffic, essentially. Assertive Yield does this through machine learning. GumGum is able to then optimize both at a holistic level, the amount of requests that are being sent, but also requests being sent per DSP partner to obviously improve or meet whatever requirements that partner has. But of course, in this instance, since they use Assertive Yield and they're also focused on sustainability, GumGum wanted to find a way to prove that there's actually a way to reduce emissions. And this, since Assertive Yield is impacting the bid stream, naturally we thought that this can have a major impact on their overall emissions, given the data that you saw before, that ad selection is such a big contributor of emissions for programmatic platforms. So diving into the case study itself, I think the numbers really speak for themselves, and you'll see this obviously when you download the case study. But if you look at what we measured in the aggregate in 2023 with GumGum, in this specific instance, we looked at the bidding data, and we saw really a massive reduction in requests being sent using Assertive Yield. It was 161 billion requests down to 99 billion requests. And that ultimately equated to a 38% reduction in bid stream emissions as measured by us. What does that all mean? So that actually resulted in an average reduction of 7 tons of CO2 emissions on a daily basis for GumGum. 7 tons. What does that mean in the real world? Well, 7 tons, if you look at equivalency calculators, it equates to 29,000 kilometers driven by an average gas-powered vehicle per year. So that is the amount of carbon reduction that's happening on a daily basis on average by using this bid stream or bid throttling technology by GumGum. So with that, I think I'll leave it with everyone that one, measurement is obviously very important to identify where your hotspots of emissions are, but there are actionable solutions you can take, whether it's through third parties or internal technology improvements that can really help you reduce emissions, particularly in programmatic today, where we see a lot of the challenges in energy usage. If there are any follow-up questions, happy to take them, obviously, later on at the end of the webinar. But thank you for everyone's time today.
Thank you so much. Impressive. Here it is again for you to go and check the case study directly. Thank you very much for this. And our next speaker is Elisa Boivin from Footsprint, and we're very happy to have you. Floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So thanks a lot for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. And it was wonderful to hear from Eric, Marion, and Greta how the ad tech and green tech space is really getting set up for us to enable us to decarbonize the media value chain. And so I'm going to focus today on the complementarity of what I have to say with our guest speakers from today. So really kind of focusing more on the consulting side and how our company supports advertisers across the world in putting in place a lot of these insights and driving change internally. And so I'm going to share a few slides with you today. And I'm going to start with this just to make sure that you can see my screen. Can everybody see the screen?
It's loaded. Yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So very nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Elisa. I am the managing director of an agency called Footsprint. That's a part of the Labellium Group. And Footsprint is a company that's really dedicated to change management and to the topic of digital sustainability. So what we do and where we specialize is really on how can we help advertisers across the world, regardless of the complexity of their media value chain, to incorporate environmental metrics into how they pilot performance so that they can capitalize on what we'll call carbon intelligence and put it at the service of media and digital performance. What that takes is a specific type of expertise. And so today, our team is really composed on one side of environmental experts, so really that bring in several decades of experience and expertise in environmental research, and that work within all of the frameworks that you heard about today. We talked about GMSF, SRI, Alliance Digitale. We're all contributing actively with everyone who is at the table today on an open source methodology towards norm building. But it also takes to work hand in hand with media and e-commerce experts that are anchored in this idea of performance and strategy so that we can work with our clients and we can work with their ecosystem of agencies as well and anchor our findings in how do we optimize campaigns so that we can put environmental metrics at the service of digital performance. Last but not least, we have also data and web development teams with us so that we can build reporting solutions that are tailored to our clients' needs. And when we make technical recommendations, here we talk about a very hands-on type of consulting, we can really work with the team on the implementation. Another thing I'll mention is this idea of making sure we at least acknowledge our blind spots. And so Eric talked about today the distribution of emissions across the value chain. You've heard this point from Greta as well as from Marion. The idea is, and it can be overwhelming at first, is really just knowing first, based on my value chain, based on my media mix, based on where my investments go, how are my emissions distributed? And if I had to focus my efforts, because we cannot do everything at once, where is it going to move the needle? And so here where we focus is on trying to have as holistic as possible a measurement framework, working hand in hand with all of the different referentials and methodologies, and actively contributing to them so that we can help clients understand the role and the different kind of emission pools they have within their value chain. So we can focus on our reduction efforts at first where it moves the needle the most, and then add the granularity and add additional pillars to our reduction strategies as we grow in maturity. One of the key topics for us is really this idea, and I hope I can show you this with numbers today, of sustainability without compromise. We are firm believers, and we've spent the last years building a multitude of case studies on this, that when you activate carbon intelligence, so when you activate environmental metrics with a media mindset, so that we can talk not just about total emissions, but the same way we look at cost in media. If I give you the total budget for a campaign, this will tell you almost nothing. But if we start talking about how efficient we were, if we start talking about cost per 1,000 impression, cost per view, cost per acquisition, depending on your campaign objectives, then we start to understand, are we allocating our dollars in line with our objectives, and are we being efficient with it? This is really what we're trying to do here, is looking beyond in emissions overall to look into the carbon cost per 1,000 impressions, the carbon cost per dollar invested, and really try to understand, if we incorporate these metrics into what we do every day, how can we improve performance? And then from that point on, the idea is really, we help our clients work on tailored digital sustainability program, because from this point on, it takes tech, but also it takes training. It takes working hand in hand with the agencies and the entire brand ecosystem so that we can put these metrics and activate them, build momentum internally, and scale. And Marion was talking a lot about scaling, and we could not agree more about how important that is to reduce our efforts at scale. So the case studies I'll show you today is really anchored around this idea. It's not just because it's a responsibility. There is a competitive advantage to be gained from correctly leveraging carbon intelligence as a performance catalyst. There's an opportunity to optimize cost, to gain in efficiency, to move away from piloting towards impression, to piloting towards attention, towards ad recall, towards engagement, to set a standard for your industry. That's one of the best part of our job, is how connected companies, the digital teams feel to the sustainability mission of companies. And so this really helps digital teams feel more connected to your overall sustainability mission. And just before I get right into it, usually when we build change management programs for companies, we have 3 key steps, no matter the complexity of your value chain. We start with, how do we build a measurement framework that's adapted to you? The idea is, do you need a custom solution? Do you need a custom dashboard? Or do you need carbon intelligent data to feed directly your already existing systems? The point is here, we can build tailor, but how do we make sure the data is present where you need it the most? To build case studies so that we can initiate this reduction journey that I'll get to in a second. And last but not least, how can we empower your entire ecosystem of teams to make sure that everyone has the eyes on the same compass and is fully aware of what it takes to get there? I will go fast on this, but this really goes back to Marion's concept of decoupling. That's exactly the concept. Is the campaign that doesn't generate emissions is the campaign that was never launched, and that's not our goal. The goal is, as your investments increase, which is a sign of the good health of your brand, how do we make sure that for every dollar we invest in media, we're being more efficient and we're generating less carbon as a result of it? And this needs to be looked at within the context of campaign granularity, campaign objectives, platform invested, etc., etc. So looking at our case study, I'm sharing a case study from a large major B2B industry leader where our objective was to help them measure, track, and reduce the environmental footprint across multiple multi-channel digital campaigns. So launch on a variety of markets that you can see here across a variety of channels. And the key concept was here, how do we do this? How do we build proof of concept without compromising on performance? And then beyond this, how do we scale? And so over the course of our collaboration with them so far, we've helped avoid 44 tons of CO2 equivalent across several campaigns. And we did this through, one, integrating media and environmental metrics as a seamless performance tracking management system, and B, making sure we anchor all of our initiatives and all of our reduction A/B testing into media insights. So more concretely, what happened during the proof of concept stage is on the first collaborations we did together, the objective was really to seamlessly integrate within the already existing management processes that the advertiser had in place with its ecosystem of agencies as well, to provide carbon forecasting ahead of the launch based on the media plan, to establish and visualize together what are the initiatives that we can put in place ahead of campaign launch and what optimizations we can do there, and what are the A/B testing that we agree to put in place during the campaign, with a clear visualization of the type of reductions this could bring us. We then worked directly with the brand and with the agencies in campaign to provide real-time insights on these KPIs that I was mentioning, so the carbon cost per engagement, per impression, per click, so that we could really make decisions anchored in media findings and environmental findings on the optimizations we did. And then we provided, of course, reporting post-campaign on the emissions that were reduced and avoided thanks to our initiatives, but also what are the set of best practices that are generalizable for future campaign launch, and how can we integrate this by design in what we do next. So just to share a few results with you here, and one of the things I wanted to highlight is behind each of the initiatives we put in place, we could quantify, one, the reductions that were linked to the initiative, as well as the impact on performances. And that's really what we focused on with the brand and the agency team. So we talked about creative compression and how can we reduce the amount of data transferred and optimize for engagement by optimizing creatives pre-campaign launch. And then in campaign, we looked at how do we align geographical placement targeting, and that ties into what Eric was talking about as well as connection, device type. And I could talk about this for days, so I will leave you with these key topics and open up for question later. But there's a variety of settings that we have control over when we build a campaign that we can then optimize against to both improve media performance in alignment with our campaign goals while reducing emissions, because the more efficient we're being and the more we lean towards effective impressions and impressions that serve our performance, the more carbon emissions we help save along that process as well. Last but not least, the idea is once we have this case study, what do we do with it? And here, having a set of best practices is just the beginning of the journey. And so we were really happy to report, for example, that campaign over campaign, we still managed to reduce drastically the carbon intensity of the campaigns compared to the previous one we had optimized with the advertiser. And this is through a variety of processes that we put in place, from making sure we empower and train the team to incorporate by design the best practices, to making sure we have a clear process for governance and progress tracking with the teams, to continuously innovating channel by channel, deep dive by deep dive on, once we by design, for example, enable creative compression across on campaigns, how can we go further? How can we go beyond? How can we add in more granularity, the same way we would in media, so that we can continuously improve our carbon costs over time. And so I'll leave you with that we can start small. It's not, and this is what we were most happy to hear our clients say, as complicated as it sounds. We can integrate seamlessly within your already existing governance processes. And then as you develop this reflex of incorporating what very much looks like media metrics, if we talk about CO2 PM or CO2 PV, this will speak to you. And as the agency and the brand teams little by little incorporate this reflex, you'll see that these KPIs really go hand in hand with what helps improve your media campaigns. And so this is where the power of carbon intelligence really comes into play. And this is then when we can scale that program, because it makes business sense for everyone involved. I hope this was clear, and we're short on time, so I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for hearing us today.
Thank you so much, Elisa. And here is the code for everyone to check. We have a few very little time left, a few minutes maybe for questions. So we can maybe just dive right in. Maybe the question I would like to ask is, how did you engage with your client and partners to ensure alignment with their decarbonization goals? Sorry, you kind of touched upon that, Elisa, a little bit with, integrating processes, existing processes, having like different steps in the assessment. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with clients that have, a large complex value chain. That's kind of where we specialize. So large, mature, multi-country clients. And so the key things that we always come back to is really those three pillars. One, for everyone to be on board, the measurement needs to be activatable where it adds value. So where do those KPIs live? And did we build the measurement framework, looking into all of also the ad tech ecosystem that empowers that? Did we build a measurement framework that is going to help everyone have their eyes on the same compass? The second piece is the training program. So did we make sure that the marketing teams, the creative teams, the media teams, the agency teams, sometimes the IT teams, all have access to what are the good practices that can help by design reduce the carbon intensity of our campaigns? Do we share learning? Do we share insights? Do we enable to break those silos through the processes that we put in place? When we think of trainings, the second piece that goes with it is having a clear governance process. Do we have everything it takes to track progress? Because if everyone puts in the efforts to implement these changes, how can we make sure that we track consistently what's being done, how it's being done, and support the teams along the way in the implementation phase so that it's a seamless process for them? And finally, the speed at which we can report on progress. So moving away from semi-annual, annual reporting to real-time metrics, and to integrating our results within campaign reporting, within the already existing reporting processes that the brands have, really enable it to be something that's just an additional KPI, an additional prism through which we view the efficiency of our campaigns, but that works at the speed we need it to work on to empower insight. And so those are really the three pillars, and then how we adapt it really depends on the client structure, and that's why we really build bespoke programs.
Okay, great. Maybe one last questions for everyone, perhaps, but maybe Marion, if you wanna answer this one. It's actually looking ahead. How do we see the supply chain decarbonization taking shape, and what are the things you're aiming for generally?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I can say that I think, and we talk about that, the alignment in terms of methodology, the work around the GMSF will be, and it's a vital, as I said previously, initiative, because for me, I feel that there can be still some blockers into like, should I start my project? Because if I need to redo everything, because I won't have the same methodology as the standard. So I would say that this will help definitely. Then I would say and again, I talk about it a lot, and we know our ecosystem, we need some collaboration also to precise modelization, to precise measurement, because sometimes we are blind, right? And so I think having collaboration to get some first party data here would be key also. And this will be all about sharing this. And also the good news here is, and I would say is already, and thanks to all the three of the case that has been presented today, and there is a ton of other things are changing. And so it means that back in the days, it was something kind of exotic, okay, sustainability into media. Now we can see how everything is shaping more in a more integrated way. So the idea is how we can be no time consuming for our clients, because we know time equal money. So how we can work on something integrated for the the greater good and the one of our planet, because our industry is rising in terms of investment. And in some country, it will keep to rise of 20% per year, like in India, for example, expected for the next 5 years. So we need to have in mind that it won't stop, and it won't stop by magic. So we need to take actions, and we need to to go cleaner, to go more transparent, in order to empower every partner of this supply chain. So this is something that we need to keep in mind.
Thank you very much, Mario, and thank you everyone for joining today's discussion. We unfortunately have to close, but yeah, very grateful for everyone to have you and all the people who joined. And just before we close, I think we just want to remind you that we have a couple of events coming up. We have also a sustainability training for the digital advertising industry. We have one happening end of March, early April, another one happening end of June and early July. So we'll, here are the links in case you're interested in getting your team on these courses. And then we also have the great debate on sustainability on the 26th of March. On 20th of March. So we'll be very happy to have you there as well. So I think we have to, bring this to a close. And thank you, everyone. And let's stay connected. Have a nice day.